Thank you guys for watching this video. Like and subscribe to see more videos. Let's get into the video.
1 Most Diabolical Criminal. Rakongai Zaraki, District 80. A lithe woman with long, raven-black hair cascading freely strolled through the swirling sands. A shallow-hilted blade hung at her waist, and the white haori draped over her jet-black kimono fluttered fiercely in the wind. Her straw sandals tread upon the billowing dust, yet not a single grain clung to them, as though she were drifting on the breeze itself. Her delicate, refined features bore a shadow of melancholy.
Long.
Far too long. For a woman who had endured a millennium of slaughter, who had come to see killing and swordplay as the very essence of her existence through endless periods, a life devoid of worthy opponents was an agony that stretched into eternity. To master the art of the blade, she had studied over 8,000 schools of swordsmanship across countless years. To refine the most exquisite techniques of death, she had swung her sword ceaselessly in this boundless world of the dead, cutting down everything her eyes could perceive until nothing remained. To prolong the thrill of killing and being killed, she had even twisted her own soul, molding her Zanpakuto, the mirror of her heart, into a form capable of healing both others and herself. Every strike drew blood. She savored the icy sting of an enemy's blade piercing her flesh, only to regenerate at blinding speed and plunge her own steel back into their body. All of this she did to revel eternally in the ecstasy of combat. She needed no reason to kill. Without a fight, how could she measure the worth of her swordsmanship? Without slaughter, how could she know if her foe had truly given their all? Battle is everything. Such was XEIenea, a woman who across untold millennia had carved her infamy throughout the Soul Society with blood and blade, an unprecedented criminal without equal in its history. Yet, after this endless saga of carnage, she began to feel her days of battle slowly drawing to a close. As time marched on and her power grew, the woman known as XEIenea could no longer find anyone capable of touching her in combat as they once had. For a soul who yearned to be pierced by steel, to be enveloped by killing intent, this realization brought a profound emptiness, a void she could only describe as living. No purpose.
Non to Sebastian.
Everything was a blank slate. From Junranin to Zaraki, those who could withstand even a single stroke of her blade were few and far between. Even when she traded her sword for a knife no longer than a finger, they all crumpled just the same. Life. So endlessly long. If only I could fall into hell. She murmured. Why, after killing so many, can I still not descend into that abyss? Is death truly the only way to get there? The graceful figure of XEIenea paused in her tracks, her voice a soft, low whisper. A place that gathers the essence of 1,000,000 years of the Soul Society, where all the mightiest fallen Shinigami converge. Even the dregs left behind would be irredeemable fiends of immense strength. If I could live in a place like that, perhaps it would fill the void within me. She longed to keep living, yet craved endless slaughter to sate a heart emptier than any hollows. XEIenea was a woman of insatiable greed. But just as she found herself lost in this familiar yearning for the umpteenth time, a figure emerged from the distant sands, approaching slowly. That silhouette noticed her as well, freezing in place the moment their eyes caught her form. This was Zaraki. A land of utter desolation, savagery, slaughter, and fear. The largest, poorest, and most warped fringe of the Rakongai, a hellish arena on the edge of existence. Countless souls clashed with scavenged blades, fighting tooth and nail for scraps of food and water, all for the sake of survival. Those pluses who needed neither sustenance nor drink were devoured the instant they appeared by the ravenous monsters who craved flesh, for even their bodies were made of rashur, after all. What remained was a battlefield of the strong against the strong. Every soul encountered here was an enemy. Their appearance mattered not. XEIenea had been born in this very place, so she understood its rules better than anyone. Yet the behavior of the child standing across from her was peculiar. He lingered at a distance, watching her intently, hesitating for a long while before finally calling out from afar. "Excuse me, are you from the XEIenea?" XEIenea cast him a fleeting, casual glance. Weak Ryatsu. For a frail little thing like this to survive in a place like Zaraki, could it really be possible? She couldn't decide whether to call him fortunate or pitiable. The flicker of sentiment within XEIenea lasted only a moment. Having slain far too many over the endless years, she had grown utterly numb to the concept of life itself. Compassion, sorrow, fear, such tender emotions were even further beyond her grasp. With scarcely a pause, she turned and began to drift toward another direction. Weaklings held no allure for her. Yet, despite her clear mercy in sparing him, the boy far from retreating seemed to grow excited at the sight of her departure. He broke into a run, his steps eager, calling out from a distance. "Are you leaving this place? Please take me with you. I've been starving for days. There's no water around here, and I dash." To XEIenea, the desperate cries of this feeble pluses were no different from the shrill wails of an infant rousing her in the dead of night. Irritating. And so she stopped. She turned, her gaze meeting the boy's stunned expression as she slowly drew a small, elegant knife, barely the length of a finger, from her sleeve. In the next instant, a flash of brilliant white gleamed in the boy's eyes.
Clang.
Metal clashed fiercely against metal, sparks flaring in a dazzling burst. The boy's face still carried that bewildered shock, yet his hands had moved almost instinctively, drawing a battered asachi from his waist, its sheath worn and splintered. The sheath shattered apart, revealing a poorly maintained katana within. A glint of surprise flickered in XEIenea's eyes. But by then, the boy had snapped to his senses. With a reflexive burst of shuinpa, he slid back a dozen meters in an instant with wary. All of his muscles are taut. Only now did XEIenea truly look at the boy before her with intent. He appeared to have died at 14 or 15, lean and wiry, with a face that could be called charming. His long hair was tied back with a twist of grassroots, and he wore a tattered brown kosode, its right sleeve rolled up and bound with a frayed cord. The lower half of his garment had been roughly torn away for ease of movement, exposing thin, sinewy legs. His feet were bare, save for a single strand of grass rope dangling between his toes. He looked every bit the refugee, dressed for survival and little else. That asachi at his waist was likely snatched from someone's cold hands. XEIenea eyes narrowed slightly, her heart giving a faint, shallow thump.
He was still weak.
Yet in that fleeting moment when he'd swung his blade with a dazed expression, she felt an inexplicable jolt, a disorienting sensation, as though she were gazing into a mirror. Like her, this boy had forged swordsmanship into his very instincts. He's trained his swordplay down to his marrow. Intriguing. A fine source of amusement. Unbeknownst to her, a faint, pleased smile had crept onto XEIenea's graceful features. In the endless expanse of her life, it seemed there were still small pleasures to be found. 2. Makoto Fujimiya. Damn it. Seeing her draped in that white coat, he thought she was one of the XEIenea 13, here to conscript cannon fodder and finally offer a way out of this hellhole. But no, she was just another soul from Zaraki? Makoto Fujimiya narrowed his eyes, his lean frame tensing into a crouch. His right hand gripped the hilt of his blade, every nerve on edge, like a feral cat bristling with hostility as he faced the long-haired woman before him. He'd been in the Soul Society for some time now, though Zaraki District's lack of sun or moon made it impossible to track the days. All he knew was that he'd already cut down dozens, maybe hundreds of souls who'd tried to kill him. Beyond that, his life these days boiled down to fighting and fleeing. With nothing but his own two legs and no landmarks to guide him, he couldn't escape this vast, desolate wasteland no matter how far he ran. If not for that slightly unhinged cheat keeping him alive, he'd have long since become meat in someone else's mouth. Only now did Makoto truly grasp the brutal reality of this place called the Soul Society. It was precisely this relentless torment, both physical and mental, that had driven him to halt the moment he spotted someone in a white haori, someone who vaguely resembled a member of the XEIenea 13, and called out to her. But now, it seemed he'd misplaced his naive, youthful hope. As the thought crossed his mind, a system panel flared to life before his eyes. The true essence of love between two souls lies in the fierce, passionate collision of spirit and tenderness, straight from the heart. Don't stop. Zanjutsu +3. This crude flirtatious system spouting nonsense was his exclusive cheat. Its words were lewd, tinged with a hint of yandere flair, but its name sounded deceptively normal. The Love and Bond System. Makoto had relied on it to survive this long. Name, Makoto Fujimiya. Ryatsu. Tier, 7 upper 1. 4 arts. Zanjutsu. Tier 4, 53,100. Hakuda. Tier 2, 29,100. Keto, Tier 1, 35,100. Ho-Ho, Tier 6, 20100. Talent restricted. Zanpakuto, unreleased. Talent points 0. Bond traits none. A love traits none. Note: in the current world, the highest recorded single attribute tier is Keto, Tier 21, Possessor, Hyasobichibe. Ryatsu, for arts, Zanpakuto release, and Bond love trait limits are all constrained by innate talent, which can be transcended via talent points. This ridiculous. Makoto's heart jolted as he stared at the Zanjutsu stat ticking upward on the panel. He'd fought over 100 battles in this period. Aside from his Ho-Ho, which he'd maxed out early on to escape with his life, Zanjutsu was his highest stat. To reach this measly Tier 4 in Zanjutsu, he'd hacked through nearly 100 foes. Yet, even then, the most he'd ever gained from a single fight was 5 points, and the least, a pitiful one after killing his opponent. But this woman? A single clash of blades, and he jumped 3 points. Realizing this, and recalling the system's rule, the stronger the opponent, the greater the threat, the more points awarded, Makoto felt a sinking dread. He was in deep trouble today. Not going to attack? As he locked eyes with the woman in a gaze that could almost be called longing, XEIenea regarded him with serene composure. A slow, gentle smile curved her graceful features. Then I'll come to you. In an instant, a wave of overwhelming terror surged through Makoto. Her killing intent pierced him like a blade, sharp and cold, forcing him to choose between death and defiance in a heartbeat.
Clang.
The Asachi in his hand sliced through the air like a ribbon of steel, driven purely by instinct as he breached the woman's domain. His speed was blistering. Yet, in the face of his assault, XEIenea merely raised her small dagger with effortless grace. A slight tilt forward. In an instant, Makoto's blade path was utterly thwarted. No matter how many times he swung, the outcome remained unchanged. At the same time, system panels flared incessantly before his eyes. When you can't resist plunging deeper into that woman's core, only the most seasoned of women know the art of stopping just short for a boy's own good. Zanjutsu +4.
No, don't.
Don't stop. Zanjutsu +3. Makoto had no spare thought to waste on the system's vulgar taunts. Only by pouring every ounce of his focus into the fight could he barely withstand the frigid killing intent radiating from the woman before him. His entire attention was riveted on the short dagger in Anohana's hand. It loomed like the sword of Damocles, poised to fall. The Asachi in his grip danced faster and faster, guided wholly by instinct. Zanjutsu +2. Zanjutsu +3. Zanjutsu +4. XEIenea, however, seemed to treat it as a game. Her dagger flicked like a pair of chopsticks, intercepting his every strike with unrelenting precision, parrying without a hint of counterattack. But as time wore on, a faint crease formed between her brows, as though something had piqued her curiosity. A puzzle had presented itself. Abruptly, her dagger twisted in her hand, darting toward Makoto's chest. A move as fluid as an antelope's leap, seamless and natural. It carried no killing intent, no warning, an almost whimsical strike. Yet Makoto, as if blind to it, twisted his body and took the blow on his shoulder. In the same motion, he thrust his Asachi, its blade far longer than her dagger, straight along the path she'd opened.
Clink.
Anohana's wrist turned, her small dagger pressing his blade aside with a delicate nudge. Her brows furrowed fully now. He hadn't used his full strength from the start? Was he testing her?
No.
Not quite a test, but rather. As if uncovering something delightful, a brilliant gleam flashed in Anohana's eyes. The speed of her dagger doubled in an instant.
Slash.
In that accelerated moment, the fabric at Makoto's shoulder tore beneath the razor-sharp edge. Even his desperate dodge spared only his muscle, his skin split open in a gaping wound, blood spraying into the air.
Deeper.
Keep going deeper. Only the depth she carves into you can measure how much she loves you. Zanjutsu +8.
Ding.
Zanjutsu, Tier 5. In the fleeting instant his stats broke through, Makoto's body and mind seemed to transcend their limits. The dagger, once a blur too fast to track, now traced clear arcs in his vision, every movement laid bare. He could feel it, the unrefined, scattered erasure coursing through his frail frame. He could sense the tearing ache ripping through his wrists, arms, shoulders, waist, and legs as he swung his blade at breakneck speed. And he realized, too, that the poised, elegant woman before him hadn't so much as altered her breathing amidst this ferocious clash. Fleeing meant certain death. She was merely toying with him. His only path forward was to satisfy her. At this moment, his mind was crushed beneath her killing intent and had no room for further deliberation. All Makoto could do was one thing: swing his blade. XEIenea, as if oblivious to his resolve, thrust her dagger once more, mirroring her earlier strike. A sudden surge of Reiatsu erupted. Winds howled, kicking up the yellow sand beneath their feet. Makoto's body shot forward like an arrow loosed from a bow, his asachi flashing out in a single, explosive step, grazing past the short blade in her hand.
Clang.
A strike equal in force and speed to the one that had torn his skin moments ago was deftly deflected with a flick of his blade. In that same breath, the tip of his asachi aimed straight for her heart. His pupils reflected the face of this woman, her delicate beauty now alight with a growing thrill. Amid the high-speed slaughter, her expression bloomed with an unearthly allure, a magnetism laced with the promise of death, beyond what any mortal could fathom. After 2 probing exchanges, certainty settled in Anohana's mind. This boy wasn't holding back. He was improving, advancing at a breathtaking pace. Her eyes narrowed, fixed on the half-grown youth before her. A bewitching, radiant smile crept across Anohana's faintly pale face. 1 Reiatsu rank. The density of Reiatsu within erasure of a given individual determines their spirit class, ranging from 1 to 20 starting with the densest erasure and consequently most powerful individuals. Lieutenants of the Godii 13 are of tier 4 or 5, while captains are of tier 1, 2, or 3. However, the erasure comprising the bodies of those with a spirit class of tier 3 or higher are too dense to break down and return to the soil of soul society after death, as the bodies of souls normally do, and since it would be too risky to leave such strong erasure remaining indefinitely in soul society, the Kanso Reisai ceremony is performed to cast captains who had such spirit class at the time of their deaths into hell. When Kaian Shiba entered the Shino Academy, his spirit class was recorded at tier 6, which was comparable in strength to a lieutenant. Canon information. 3 fierce. Not bad. You're not bad at all. XEIenea gazed at the boy before her, her usually somber, icy eyes finally meeting Makoto's with the warmth of addressing a living soul. She still held that finger-length dagger loosely in her hand, her tone laced with what might have been genuine praise. To improve so swiftly in swordsmanship among all I've known, you're only the second. Do you want to live? Pa. Makoto spat low under his breath. He couldn't tell if this was some twisted cat-and-mouse game or sincere admiration from her heart. But after killing so many in this forsaken Zaraki hellhole, he'd yet to meet a single soul who'd let someone walk away so easily. If they did, it was usually followed by a blade in the back. Everyone born here after death was a wretched criminal, one step from hell itself. That was the merciless truth of Zaraki. So his answer was already clear in the way he raised his blade. Live, he didn't just want to live. Even against an unbeatable foe, trapped in a hopeless plight, he'd fight to the last breath in a near-certain death match, bleeding out every drop. He had to survive. And not just survive, he'd live better than anyone else. This life, he was armed with meta-knowledge of the story and a cheat. To die in a trash heap like this, barely past the tutorial village, would be a waste beyond reckoning.
Good.
XEIenea studied his resolute eyes, her smile deepening. She tossed the small dagger aside with a flick of her wrist, then slowly drew the asachi from her waist. Her voice remained soft and beguiling, a breeze that soothed like spring. Use every method you can imagine. If you can touch me, even once just the hem of my clothes, you win. Entertain me. The moment her words fell, a shiver of dread clawed up Makoto's spine. In the next heartbeat, a tidal wave of terrifying Reiatsu erupted from the woman before him. It surged relentlessly, a low-pressure vortex more fearsome than a tornado, warping and crushing everything in sight with invisible force. It demanded the weak kneel before the strong, its erasure essence flooding every inch of space he could perceive. Then, her figure vanished from his view. Makoto's gaze faltered for a split second before a blinding slash tore through the scene. Scrape.
Clang.
Sparks flew as metal clashed against metal, ringing out in a sharp, staccato symphony. With every ounce of strength, Makoto raised his Asachi just in time to block her casual strike. The force pressed his blade back against his shoulder, steel grinding against steel in a shower of dazzling sparks and ear-piercing screeches.
Clang, 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 clang.
The hammering blows melded into a thunderous cacophony. Yet, as the boy struggled to hold his ground, Anohana's eyes betrayed no hesitation. Each swing of her blade grew sharper, more decisive than the last, the crushing weight threatening to shatter every erasure particle in Makoto's body. Even the act of blocking was becoming an unbearable strain. She kept pressing harder. He tried to overestimate this woman, likely a Zaraki fixture for years, but now he realized he'd still underestimated her. Even without witnessing her shirkai, judging by the original story's benchmarks, her strength was at least on par with a lieutenant, wasn't it? The only silver lining was this: the fiercer the pressure, the faster Makoto improved. Push harder. Come on, Wani-chan. Push harder. Don't hold back just because I'm a delicate flower. Zanjutsu plus 10. Small fry. You're small fry, Wani-chan. Can't you thrust deeper? You've got to squeeze every inch of flesh and blood out of me. Zanjutsu plus 10. Faster. Hit me harder. My body can take it. Zanjutsu plus 10. Under this relentless barrage, Makoto's strength soared at a near-ascendant pace. Zanjutsu. Tier 6. Zanjutsu Bottleneck, Stage 2. Deathmatch in progress, Zanjutsu Bottleneck Breakthrough. Zanjutsu, Tier 7. His talent ceiling hadn't yet been reached. But the more he traded blows at this breakneck limit, the more acutely he felt the chasm between them, a gap as vast and deep as an ocean abyss. The harder he fought, the more his heart trembled. Even as the system panel showed him advancing at lightning speed, that pace still left the end maddeningly out of reach. She was a bottomless void, insatiable. No amount of sweat or effort could fill her, let alone overflow. Worse still, no matter how he gauged it, her ryatsu, speed, reflexes, and power all seemed perfectly matched to his own level. What terrifying control. Cat and mouse. She was toying with him. To think that in the Soul Society, a powerhouse this fearsome was confined to a backwater like Zaraki. In that fleeting moment of distraction, his vision caught the edge of her kimono fluttering open in the wind, revealing a glimpse beneath the pale haori, a generous, swaying expanse that danced like water balloons. What the? His eyes flicked toward it instinctively. Distraction. Anohana's voice cut through, cold and flat, shattering Makoto's scattered thoughts. Still composed in the face of life and death. Quite the luxury, wasn't it? In the next instant, her Zanpakuto surged to a higher gear. Slash. In the blink of an eye's lapse, Anohana's blade pierced his seemingly airtight guard. The blade sliced through his clothes along its sharp edge, carving a long, diagonal gash across his chest, blood welling from the wound. Blood sprayed in a crimson arc, gushing like a broken dam. In the instant the blade sliced through, Makoto instinctively rolled across the sand, using his body as a shield while his free hand pressed into the ground, grasping something unseen. That brief distance was all that spared him from being cleaved in two. Unohana stood rooted in place, lifting her blade. Her tongue flicked out, tasting the blood, vibrant and young, along its edge. A sickly, satisfied smile deepened across her pale cheeks. You dodged again. You're even better than I imagined. It's as if you improve with every swing. But those who wield a blade just to survive always die in battle. Only those who throw themselves wholly into the fray, savoring the endless thrill between life and death, can endure alone to the end. A serene smile spread across Anohana's delicate face. She opened her arms toward Makoto, her voice a command. Swing. Makoto gripped his blade with both hands, his expression taut with resolve. In a burst of motion, sand exploded beneath his feet. He propelled himself forward with Shuinpa, charging at the woman with near-peerless speed. His Asachi carved a blinding arc through the air. Unohana, her smile brimming with fulfillment, thrust her own blade in perfect unison. Slash. Their blades crossed midair. Makoto's momentum halted abruptly. The razor-sharp edge pierced his youthful chest, dragging out torrents of blood that clung to the steel. Yet his Asachi, even to the last, couldn't graze so much as a thread of the woman before him. Still just short. Unohana glanced at the blade drooping slowly at her side, her tone tinged with a faint, wistful sigh. Her alluring, narrowed eyes dipped downward. Her appearance and figure radiated a ripe beauty that seemed to drip with allure, yet her expression resembled a child who'd accidentally broken a favorite toy. It wasn't the first time, though. The weak were always so fragile. As she sighed softly, preparing to flick the mangled flesh from her blade, Makoto suddenly seized her wrist, staining her clothes red with his grip. Unohana's brows furrowed slightly. She didn't care for this, lingering nonsense after the game was done. Then, in a frail voice, he rasped, "Hey!" Makoto tightened his hold on her wrist and lifted his head. A blood-streaked grin spread across his face, his gaze fierce and unyielding. "Too bad,"
he said.
Teardrop-shaped. "I kinda liked it." Unohana blinked, caught off guard, either not understanding or simply stunned by the unexpected remark. For a fleeting moment, she froze. An opponent so childishly fixated on fleeting desires, even at death's door, that was a first. But it was that split-second lapse of disdain. Makoto's right hand clamped down harder on hers. Ignoring the searing agony tearing through his body, he forced the blade deeper into himself by a fraction. As he leaned forward, his free left hand shot out, reckless and desperate. Even if it cost his life, he'd land one solid grab on this wicked woman. In that same heartbeat, a faintly familiar small dagger emerged from his palm. Unohana's pupils contracted sharply. This from that moment he'd rolled across the ground. Rip! The finger-length dagger tore through the fabric at her chest, plunging downward with ferocious intent. Yet, inexplicably, that seemingly fatal strike halted. Makoto lowered his gaze. The blade's tip had merely grazed the smooth, teardrop curve of her skin, leaving a scratch so faint it drew no blood at all. It wouldn't budge an inch further. This woman was tough as hell. Makoto stared at the scene, his last reserves of Ryatsu draining away. His body wavered, hollowed out, and teetering on collapse. Blood surged uncontrollably from his mouth, his eyes blazing wide. He locked onto Unohana's serene face. Only the corner of his lips clung to a strained smirk as he growled. Distraction? With the final breath he'd held and his chest expelled, strength fled his body like water through a sieve. His consciousness blurred rapidly. His head drooped. He blacked out. Unohana stood alone, gazing at the boy slumped against her, his final strike spent. His hand still clutched that small dagger tightly. For a moment, she was lost in thought. Recalling that last exchange, her lips twitched upward, a faint grin breaking free. It widened into an unrestrained smile, then erupted into a rare, hearty laugh that shook her frame. Something utterly delightful had crossed her path. Heedless of the blood soaking him, Unohana wrapped her arms around the boy crumpled against her, pulling him fully into her embrace. Like a true mother, she gently stroked his blood-matted hair, her pale cheek pressing tenderly against his forehead. In a low, thrilled whisper, she murmured,
"Yes.
Progress alone isn't enough. This is how battle should be. No rules, no limits. You're quite the surprising gift." Event: bond level with Yuichiro Unohana increased. Rewards: Ryatsu rank +1, talent point +1. Acquired bond trait: swordsmanship prodigy. Ryatsu: tier 7 upper tier, 6 lower. Bond trait: swordsmanship prodigy. Zanjutsu talent cap raised to tier 12. Ignores bottlenecks. Increases Zanjutsu attribute gain speed. Grants a chance to comprehend personal swordsmanship and styles. 4 awake.
Cold.
Trembling. A constricting pressure gripped his chest as if something were wrapping around it, yet it felt soaked in a warm, slick liquid, suffocating in a way he couldn't quite name. Makoto's consciousness clawed its way back. Then, in a sudden jolt, his eyes snapped open. Unfamiliar. Gurgle, gurgle.
Splash.
The boy lurched upright from a half-filled wooden tub, his weakened body nearly collapsing. He braced himself against the edge, though his struggling splashed water in wide arcs. Wait, what was this place?
Oh.
You're awake? Congratulations. Starting today, you're a cute little girl now. A long-haired man, busy with something near another bed, turned at the sound behind him, a wooden ladle dangling from his hand.
Huh.
At those words, Makoto's hand instinctively darted into the shadowy depths of the water.
Phew.
He let out a quiet breath of relief. His treasure was still intact and unchanged. Good thing it was a joke. He turned his head toward the man. Did you save me? Thanks.
But
Makoto trailed off, his gaze sweeping the surroundings. What he saw was a room roughly the size of an ordinary bedroom, thick with steamy mist. Nearby stood several large barrels of hot water, a bathhouse. The realization hit him, and he froze for a moment. In Zaraki, where nearly all resources, water, food, and clothes, were hoarded by the strongest, even drinking a few sips at a fixed spot was a grueling ordeal, every moment shadowed by the blades of ruthless monsters. Bathing? Unthinkable. You'd need a helmet just to fish there. With that thought, Makoto voiced the question gnawing at him. Where the hell am I? And that crazy, big-breasted woman who tried to kill me, where's she? Oh, didn't take the bait, huh? I thought you'd. The bathhouse guy rambled on, seemingly caught off guard by the question at first, then echoing it back. Big-breasted what? It took a beat before realization dawned. His cheeks puffed out, his face flushing a deep liver red. He tried hard to stifle it, but failed spectacularly.
cool.
Kukakahaha. His laughter erupted, wild and unrestrained, as he clutched his stomach, doubling over. His body shook, breathless from the fit. Makoto stared, bewildered. He'd nearly been hacked to death by that woman. What was so funny? You little... The small-eyed bathhouse guy wheezed, trembling with mirth. His grin stretched ear to ear, uglier than a sob. No wonder you survived that woman's hands. You're a real tough one. Huh. Stick around, I'll look out for you plenty from now on. Makoto's confusion deepened. He gripped the tub's edge, instinctively trying to stand. But the moment he lifted a hand, a searing, tearing pain ripped through his chest and abdomen.
Ugh.
He grunted, glancing down. Thick bandages swathed his chest, arms, and stomach. The warm water cradling him had taken on a delicate pink hue. Blood-tinged hot springs. As a professional doctor, I'd advise against moving around too much. The long-haired bathhouse guy chimed in, barely containing his amusement. His tone carried a hint of seriousness as he offered the warning. He turned back to his task as he spoke. Makoto followed his gaze and noticed, for the first time, what lay on the bed ahead, a stripped corpse. His pupils shrank. Instinct drove him to lunge for the battered Asachi resting nearby. Smack. Before he could fully rise, his wrist was abruptly pinned by the seemingly carefree bathhouse guy. Makoto froze. His wrist wouldn't budge. Such strength. And that Shuinpa freakishly fast. He flicked his eyes to the corpse, then back to the long-haired man now standing before him without warning. A thought surged in his mind. Did that woman drag him back to her damn lair? Easy there, kid. The bathhouse guy released his wrist with a casual air, tossing out a warning. Drawing a blade on my turf is a dangerous move. You'll die, you know. Makoto pulled back his faintly bruised wrist, rising from the tub with gritted teeth against the pain. Cautiously, he asked, Where is this place?
Who are you?
Can I leave?
Norus.
The bathhouse guy flashed a grin, flicking his thick, flowing hair with a flourish. His tone softened. My apologies, though that was rude of me. You're currently in West Rakongai, District 64, Sabatsura. And this is the only training sanctuary in all of Seoul society, the Genji School. He did not explain the name as if it were some obvious, universal truth. Finally, he thrust out a thumb, pointing at himself with unmatched swagger, his voice booming with unshakable confidence. And I am the legendary guardian of the Genji School, the phantasmagorical powerhouse, the fastest legend in all of Seoul society. Tenjiro the Great. That's me. The bathhouse guy flung his long hair with a flourish, closing his eyes in quiet anticipation, awaiting the awestruck praise from the gravely injured boy before him. But after a long stretch, only a deathly silence greeted him. He cracked an eye open, his expression shifting to confusion. Makoto stood frozen, unresponsive for what felt like ages. Hey. You little punk, you didn't just die recently, did you? To think you've never even heard of me. But in the next breath, Makoto bolted upright, seizing him with a grave intensity. What did you say your name was? The bathhouse guy blinked, thrown off. Tenjiro. Tenjiro Kurinji. Hey, hey, hey. I've been famous far and wide for ages. Don't you dare act like you don't know me. After all that bombastic self-introduction, how embarrassing would it be otherwise? Makoto ignored his bluster, swallowing hard before pressing on. Then the Genji school is? You little, don't tell me you really just crossed over from the dead? Tenjiro's eyes widened. The Genji school, of course, it's the hallowed ground founded by the Grandmaster, the Master of Teachings, the unrivaled Shinigami who's held the title of Soul Society's mightiest for 1,000 years, Genryosei Shigekuni Yamamoto. As expected. Makoto's mind churned, clinging to one last thread of hope as he asked. Then the XEIenea Godii, 13, has it been formed yet? Now it was Tenjiro's turn to look puzzled. XEIenea. Lately, we've been tangling with those damn nobles, sure lost a fair few in the fights, too. But, Godii, 13. His small eyes glinted with a clear, almost foolish innocence. Never heard of that unit. Done for. The worst possible draw. Makoto's hands fell limp, his body slumping back into the tepid tub, his face drained to an ashen gray. He'd crossed into a time at least a millennium before even the Godii, 13 squad had been established. An unknown era. Not only was his meta-knowledge advantage gone, but if he lived long enough, he'd have to face the omnipotent Yhwach, twice. Twice. And that didn't even touch the relentless chaos and bloodshed of the Soul Society. Inevitable. Noticing his sudden descent into despair, Tenjiro grinned, tossing out a few consoling words. Still, you're pretty impressive, kid. To survive that woman, Retsu, when you don't even look that strong. Amazing. Besides that old man, you're the first to pull that off. Right now, I'd bet 8 out of 10 folks in the Genji school are buzzing about your name. At the mention of that woman's name from Tenjiro's lips, Makoto's body jolted as if struck by lightning, a faint twitch rippling through him. When his brain caught up, he asked, Who'd you say? Retsu. That's the woman who nearly killed you. Oh, but these days you'd better use this new name. Tenjiro flashed a carefree, mischievous grin, clearly enjoying the spectacle. Because she's the most diabolical criminal of history. Yuichiro Unohana. Yesterday, she's the one who dragged you back here, said she wants that old man to take you as a disciple. Makoto's demeanor grew eerily calm. He slid slowly back into the tub, utterly unmoored. Damn you, Zaraki District. What a cursed hellhole. 5. Genji School. At the entrance of the hot spring and hung a plaque inscribed with spring bath, encircled by a simple wooden fence. Perhaps it was Tenjiro's fearsome reputation that kept the area devoid of souls. Makoto sat numbly on a bench to the side of the inn, staring out at the vast, desolate expanse of Rakongai in the distance. By now, his tattered rags had been replaced. He wore a jet-black shahakusho layered over a crisp white undergarment, with a fresh pair of straw sandals on his feet. The blood-soaked scraps and grassroots he'd once called clothes had been discarded somewhere after the fight, lost to oblivion. His greasy, lice-ridden black hair, now washed clean in the spring bath, was tied into a simple short ponytail with a grassroot draping down his back. He gazed into the blank void ahead. Name, Makoto Fujimiya. Ryatsu. Tier 6 lower, 3 RD 4 TH seat. 4 arts. Zanjutsu. Tier 7, 13,100. Hakuda. Tier 2, 29,100. Kido. Tier 1, 35,100. Ho-Ho. Tier 6, 20100. Talent restricted. Zanpakudo. Unreleased. Talent points 1. Bond traits. Swordsmanship prodigy. Yuichiro Unohana, level 1. A love traits none. Note, Ryatsu, for arts, Zanpakudo, and Bond love trait limits are constrained by innate talent, which can be transcended or enhanced via talent points. Makoto glanced at the lone talent point on his panel, recalling Tenjiro's parting words that Genryosei Shigekuni Yamamoto might summon him soon. For now, he held off on using it, tempering his impulses. Feeling the tangible swell of Ryatsu within him and the flood of swordsmanship techniques that had bloomed in his mind after waking, he wavered between gratitude and an urge to curse. Perched on the bench, he mulled over the intel he'd pried from that bathhouse worker, a mix of sighs and groans escaping him. What kind of rotten period did I land in? Unbelievable. He knew Tenjiro. Tenshiro Kurinji was one of the royal guard, the divine general of the East dubbed Hot Spring Demon, overseer of the Kirindin in the Zero Division's palace. But that was meta-knowledge from 1,000 years in the future. Right now, he was just a doctor tinkering with corpse dissections in a bathhouse. And it wasn't just that tidbit that was useless. From what Makoto had gathered, the Soul Society's current landscape was a world apart from the era he knew. Genryosei Shigekuni Yamamoto, hailed as the mightiest in Soul Society for a millennium past, had founded the Genji School nearly 1,000 years ago. Under his banner were 3,000 disciples and 72 instructors. The old man's burly muscles could flex into the shape of the kanji for virtue with a mere twitch. His Ryujin Jaka commanded unwavering respect. And for those who doubted, well, they'd likely been reduced to ash by Zenka no Tachi. His authority was so immense that even the woman branded the most diabolical criminal in Soul Society history had bent the knee after her defeat, dutifully taking her place as a swordsmanship instructor in his Genji school. A true paragon of benevolence. If that were all, it'd merely mean one more powerhouse in the Soul Society's ranks, a footnote in its million-year saga, where monsters like him weren't unheard of. But the crux was this invincible old man refused to just fight and brawl. Instead, he'd turned to teaching. Was that normal?
No.
He was anything but. And teaching aside, this old coot only recruited the dregs of Rakongai, starving wretches with no next meal, surviving on water alone, fighting like their lives depended on it. Who in their right mind would tangle with that lot? So, after centuries of amassed renown, the Genji school under Genryosei Shigekuni Yamamoto's iron grip naturally became a whispered legend in Rakongai, a sacred training ground, the destined path for any departed soul with Ryatsu potential to rise as a mighty Shinigami, the hope of all Rakongai. Over time, these hand-picked, cream-of-the-crop gutter fighters from the 80 districts of Rakongai's Four Corners had swelled in number, recently surpassing even the XEIenea's forces. More than that, the average skill of the Genji school's rank-and-file Shinigami outstripped the pampered nobles of the XEIenea by a wide margin. The Central 40 SAXS route wasn't new, but only now, with the fire at their heels, did their sluggish minds register the truth. Wasn't this Genji school getting a bit too strong? Exterminated. It had to be exterminated. Could they win?
Huh.
Whether the Central 40 SAXS orders came from brains or empty skulls was anyone's guess, a mystery too murky to unravel. In any case, since that decree, the war between the XEIenea nobles and the Genji school has raged on to this day. Now, the chief culprit, Genryosei Shigekuni Yamamoto, topped the XEIenea's most wanted list year after year, his bounty a staggering 15 billion kan, 10 times the combined sum of the next 9 names. In another world, he'd be the undisputed king of Shinigami. This stretch of history, predating the main storyline, was anything but kind to someone like Makoto. This damn plot, I've never even heard of it. Tight Kubo. Give me back my life, you bastard. Makoto fumed, tempted to bash his head against the ground in frustration. Hey, cool it. What's with you, you weakling? Scared stiff by a woman. Just as he was about to ram the wall in his rage, Tenjiro sauntered back from outside, grinning ear to ear, his voice laced with the rolling cadence of a street punk. Those tiny eyes narrowed into slits as he chewed on a toothpick, taunting. It's just Retsu giving you the eye. Ha. You're gonna end up in 8,000 pieces anyway, might as well enjoy it while you can. Do you even know how to comfort someone, you jerk? Makoto shot him a dark glare, his irritation flaring at the sight of that face. And can you open your eyes when you talk to me? Tenjiro's face stiffened, then flushed crimson, his eyes now bulging like date pits locked onto him as he roared. They're already as open as they get, damn it. Huh. Makoto froze, staring at him. A flicker of guilt crossed his face, his gaze darting away sheepishly. Sorry, really sorry about that. You little punk. Tenjiro's veins bulged, his features twisting in fury. Suddenly, he got it. Yuichiro wanting to chop this kid to bits wasn't without reason. Instructor Kurinji. As he began rolling up his sleeves, a cold voice cut through from the doorway behind. Genryosei Salma is still waiting for him. At the sound, Tenjiro snapped back to the matter at hand. Makoto turned toward the voice. There stood a tall, lean man with silver hair and golden eyes, his hair swept back in a sharp, imposing style. He lingered at the entrance. His left hand rested on his sword hilt, a short, white cape draped over his shoulder. His eagle-like gaze pierced through them both. His mere presence was a blade freshly unsheathed. Chojiro Sasakaibe. Genryosei Shigekuni Yamamoto's foremost disciple. Even among the Genji school's elite, he was a standout, a powerhouse who'd followed Yamamoto for a full millennium, his most trusted right hand. TCH. Brat, they're here for you. Tenjiro spat, but he didn't defy the summons, stepping aside to clear a path. Sasakaibe gave him a slight nod before turning his calm gaze to Makoto. You're Makoto Fujimiya? Genryosei-sama wishes to see you. Come with me. With that curt declaration, cool and devoid of excess, he vanished in a blink. When he reappeared, he was dozens of meters away. Makoto's pupils shrank. The people of this Genji school were fast freakishly so. But just as he stepped forward to follow, Tenjiro tilted his head, tossing out a casual warning. Hey, that old man ain't as easygoing as me, you know. Makoto flashed a grin, glancing back. Guess that makes you a pretty decent guy, huh? You brat. Tenjiro lunged, aiming a hand chop at his back. But Makoto, as if foreseeing it, flickered away with Shuinpa, darting dozens of meters to trail steadily behind Sasakaibe, vanishing into the distance. TCH. Tenjiro chewed his toothpick, spitting rudely onto the ground with a scowl. That damn punk. Serves him right, getting targeted by that psycho Yachiru. Die for all I care. I won't lift a finger.
Bonus chapter.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.